Now, as I go through these, I also invite you to jot down notes by reflecting on what all of this means for you personally. Really think about how you would like to experience the magic and the energy of this year. If you haven't already set your intentions, think about what it is that you would like to call in. And if you have an intention already for the year, see how it fits in, right? Are there aspects that you might wish to refine, for instance? And also just to say, 2025, right? I've talked about how the outer planets are changing signs. Now, because they'll also be going retrograde, what this means is that they're going to go back into the sign that they were entering from. So you can just imagine, right? Exit, entry. There's going to be a little bit of back and forth. And that's why I've called today's gathering Crossing the Threshold. The second piece I wanted to highlight is that Mars retrograde is also setting the tone for the new year. So Mars went into retrograde starting December 6th, and it's taking place all the way, right, through the new year, the whole of January, until the end of February. So whenever we have a retrograde, it's a pause and it's also a point of reset. It's an opportunity for us to re-examine the old ways of doing. Mars is the principle of action, taking action. So when it goes into retrograde, we want to re-examine how have we been doing things and have they served us? Right? What new strategies can we put into place when Mars goes direct? So what this tells us is that the new year is not a time to take immediate bold action. Rather, this is an excellent time to tend to your roots, lay a strong foundation for the rest of the year. So one thing I want to highlight here, if there's one takeaway about Mars retrograde, this is about re-examining old ways of approaching how we go about the year. With a new year, it's a fresh beginning. We don't have to do the same old thing again and again, especially if they have not worked, especially if they have not served us. Instead, take the time between now till end of February to explore what really drives you, and what true desires that you have in your heart that you wish to manifest. So the nodal shift, it also points to a shift in our collective energies for the next 19 months. So the whole of 2025 and part of 2026 next year. This is where we as humanity, as a collective, will be moving towards. Pisces also represents the realm of dreams and aspirations, your highest, noblest ideals, which makes it a perfect time to use this year to really seed your dreams and manifest them. One thing to note is that Neptune, that's the modern ruler of Pisces, right now it's very near a conjunction with the North Node, and it becomes exact in about 2 weeks' time. Exact on February 7th. So what this means is that you're going to have an amplification of energies that is already starting to build up. So Neptune rules Pisces, and it's going to be conjunct the North Node in Pisces. So what it really means is that you think of it like a little rocket boost, right? The ruling planet, strong in its energies, is going to meet the North Node. And I really see this as a dream time, a time when we can really move towards our highest aspirations. Now, I've just covered the astrology, but I want to throw in two more additional points that may be of interest to you. So it sounds like we're all, women on a spiritual path where we also desire to be of higher and greater service. So let's feel into two other aspects of 2025 energies. And I'm going to look at first numerology. So the number 9. So this is a universal year of 9. What that means is that when you add up the digits of 2025, 2 plus 0 plus 2 plus 5, you get a number 9. Now this is the last number that is a single digit number. So that in itself signifies it's a transition moving from single to double. back to one again, right? If you count 10 as a one number. So this is the final year of a cycle that began in 2017. But essentially, nine this year, it's all about closure, transition, and release. And many of you have actually echoed this in your shares. You'll be shedding, you're putting an end to certain things, and you're moving, you're transitioning into something new. You may have heard in the news, right? There are more sunspots, solar flares, geomagnetic storms, and heightened solar radiation. All of this impacts planet Earth, and it also impacts us, right? Us beings who are living on Earth. It affects our cellular body, so our physical bodies, as well as our energy bodies. In fact, you may be very familiar with this concept of light bodies that are being activated right now. Because on an energetic level, our crystalline bodies are receiving upgrades from these heightened solar energies. Essentially, you get the drift. You get the idea that this is a time when we're really entering a portal, a time when lots of shifts are taking place. So I call 2025 a threshold year. Earlier I mentioned that we have planets moving into the sign of Aries. We have Saturn and Neptune. And as they move in and out, they'll be cutting through 0 degrees Aries, which is the creator degree. This is a cardinal, it's an initiating sign. So Saturn, Neptune, and the North Node, right? They're all going to be hovering around this degree in 2025. This is also the degree where in the Northern Hemisphere, where most of us are from, this is the degree where the spring equinox in the Northern Hemisphere takes place. Typically occurs around March 21st to 22nd, and it marks the beginning of a new astrological year. So I like to see the time from January 1st to the time of the spring equinox as a threshold time. We're transitioning. Just as the seasons take time, they don't just suddenly change in one day. So as human beings who align and live according to the seasonal cycles, we also take time to shift into the energies of a new beginning. So this in-between space that we're now in, this threshold time, it's really ripe for fresh beginnings, making a fresh start. And Aries, right? This is the first sign in the zodiac. So it's all about taking bold, pioneering steps. Aries is a sign of courage, of being self-reliant, of trusting yourself. And many of you have spoken about transitioning into that piece around empowerment. That's huge. And by now you also know that it's going to be a very fast-moving, accelerated time. Perhaps you've already felt it. We're 11 days in. How has it been with you so far? I know for me, it was like, oh gosh, one day after the other. It just flows. Lots of heady energies in this space as well. So it's easy to be shaken off balance, right? We're most definitely going to see a rise in mental health issues. A lot of air energies. So to counter this, heart energy is going to be needed. It's going to be so important for all of us to stay centered and grounded in a world that is constantly in flux. This is the year where we begin to prepare for lasting changes that are going to occur, and they're going to begin in 2026. So knowing all this helps us to prepare, right? Knowing the weather, we can get ready. 2025 is a year of closure and preparation for a new beginning. So on the personal individual front, because Aries is a sign of the self, of the individual, this is a year about really getting honest. And by honesty, I mean being courageously vulnerable, digging deep inside yourself about how you've been holding on to patterns from your past. This may be conscious or unconscious, and to examine how that has weighed you down. So this refers to baggage, right? What baggage have you been carrying? And this baggage has given you less space to move in the direction of where you desire to go. And this is a really good year to let all of that drop. All right, all the stuff from your past. And it's not just stuff from this life, but from other lifetimes, from generational, inherited, ancestral, epigenetic trauma. So for me, that's what makes 2025 such an exciting year. All the energies are pointing towards this year being a prime opportunity. So one of the reasons why I felt such a strong call to share what I'm about to share with you, and this is where we're going to come to today's topic, crossing the threshold. When we shift and when we move from one dimension to another, the progress tends to be messy before it gets magical. From messy to magical. So the ground, it may still feel a bit uncertain, a bit shaky. So some of you were mentioning feeling a bit nervous, but also excited, because it is a very exciting time. It's fertile and ripe. And I'll say more about some of the opportunities that are available towards the end. First, though, I'd like to begin by offering you two definitions of this word. So the first definition of threshold is that it is a limit. Now, you may have come across these terms. Upper limit. This is a term popularized by Gay Hendricks in his book, The Big Leap, where he talks about how we have these limits that we set, an upper limit that we set for ourselves. This could be due to our family of origin, where, maybe in your family of origin, they say only this much is good enough. And so you don't dare to go beyond. There's also this idea of self-imposed glass ceiling. And this glass ceiling is invisible. It's due to limiting beliefs. For example, you may think, oh, I can't do something. It's not for me. Other people get to do it, but no, not me. So have a think about what limits you have been carrying with you. I know some common ones from the women that I've worked with. That's right. Remaining stuck in a marriage that didn't work for them, but they didn't think that they could break out of it. That it just isn't done. For some of you, maybe, venturing into digital entrepreneurship, right? I don't think any of us came from a generation where we were born knowing about the internet. We had to learn. And so most of us, when we were young, we probably only knew of career options that involved being in a physical space. So this quote, right, what it highlights to us is that the limits, all the limiting beliefs that you've shared, they are resistance. And actually, Stephen Pressfield's book, this whole book, The War of Art, it's really a war on resistance. I don't really like the use of the word war. To me, it still, belongs to a very patriarchal paradigm. But he's right in pointing out that there's oftentimes a lot of resistance. This what I call inner friction. You want to do something, but there's tension and struggle inside. And there's a tendency to externalize it. So we see obstacles outside of us. And we say, oh, we can't. Maybe it's a money issue. Or maybe it's a family. It's the community that we're in. Oh, I'm stuck in this part of the world. I can't do what I want to do. Right? To do that, I also want to highlight and share with you a second definition of threshold. And that threshold is a liminal space. It's actually a space, right? When you're just starting something, you're on the brink of something new. So this is an in-between space where if you're at the threshold, you are occupying both sides of a position. You haven't fully exited and you haven't fully entered. You are crossing over. But at this stage, you are neither here nor there. And it's important to be aware of this. Again, because we live in such a hyper-masculine, go, 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 do, do, do kind of world, there can be this rather unrealistic expectation that you just cross over and you get to the other side. And then you just get to the next thing. But the truth is, this threshold space, right? It can be disorienting. It's difficult to navigate. So I just want to highlight that there's actually another definition of threshold that I invite you to lean into, which is that a threshold is actually a boundary that results in a significant change when it's reached and surpassed. It's a tipping point. And I invite you to see the threshold for 2025 as your tipping point. We are all on the threshold of a new age, and the best part is that you get to participate and be a part of it, right? In the work that you do, etc. So I want to end by just sharing that, when your consciousness expands, the threshold that first appears as a limit, some of you, and you've shared some of that, right? That is only the limit of one layer of understanding. Right? I don't have the time to go into all of this, and that's why I have my course. But what you're beginning to already realize is that your threshold, it also acts as the doorway to the next deeper layer, right? The positive aspect of a threshold is that there is structure. There's a clear structure. When it's reached, something else happens or changes. You can even think of the metaphor, right, of the caterpillar, reaches the threshold point, changes, metamorphosizes into a butterfly. So a creative way, right, a new way of looking at your threshold is to ask the question, what's your unique glass ceiling of possibility? It's a possibility. I love this short little excerpt that says, life is short. You get 4,000 weeks if you're lucky. Book that flight. Apply for that job. Start that business. Stop putting limits on yourself. And I feel that in this collective amplified field of possibility that we have marinated in for the past 2 hours, I can feel that momentum of, this is the year where each of us are going to start putting limits on ourselves. So what comes naturally for many people is to not to take action, right? To give into the anxiety and fear of rejection, which may still occasionally come up. So what I want to say is, and this is how I'd like to end, is to get in alignment, and your aspiration is guaranteed to turn into actualized achievement.